Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Oh yeah, chug it, slam it. Suck that bowl.
Fuck yeah.
Suck off that bowl.
I sucked it off.
Oh man, yeah. You know, their famous catchphrase, suck the bowl.
That's our catchphrase. Suck the flavor. Hi everyone.
Hello everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Midnight Mass.
Mittersnacht.
Midnight
Mass. I don't know.
Midnight Massachusetts.
Yeah, you know, Midnight Mass. I'm heading down there this weekend.
It's near Sandwich.
Yeah.
We tend to dislike mysteries. We feel uncomfortable not knowing. The more that we know, the less we bend, the more brittle we become. The easier to break.
Okay. All right. We're juiced up.
Yeah!
We're juiced up. Look, folks, Venom is next week. I mean, it's out this week, but we'll do Venom next week.
Yeah.
But then there's like Tom, there's fucking VHS 94.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, we might have to do like 10.
We got a Jimmy B. We got a Jimmy Bond in there.
I know. I might say we skip James, and we just do like
we're gonna skip James Vanderbond.
Yeah, James Vanderbond. This is it's Spooky Month. We're beginning Spooky Month.
It's all spoops all the time.
Yeah, so no better way to do it than for Midnight Mass, this Mike Flanagan series, which some of you are probably still listening,
probably still
watching,
getting through. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously spoilers. We're going to talk about this whole series from beginning to end.
Yeah. So plug up your little ears if you haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, that's worth noting because it's a series. It's only like 7 episodes. I watched it in a day.
Man, we almost did.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
And he also, I mean, we'll get into it, but he also specifically designed this one so that each episode flows into each other.
Yeah, he was a real asshole about that.
So
so you just keep watching it.
It's being aware of the format. Like people are just gonna let it binge, but it's interesting that the show is assembled in a way that the credits, the end credits of each episode, lead directly into the opening credits of the next episode.
Oh yeah,
it's like poetry, Dave.
Yeah. It flows. Doesn't rhyme, it flows.
It runs downhill like poetry. And
this is not... So this isn't associated with the Haunting of Hill House or the Haunting of Bly Manor.
No.
It's obviously shot like a Flanagan thing because it's Mike Flanagan, but it's not at all the same, and therefore I can't really compare the two because that would be unfair.
They're all different. Flanagan has this... Like, okay, so Hill House is, I feel like Hill House and Bly Manor, definitely Bly Manor, are more gothic.
Yeah.
Like Bly Manor is like a gothic romance more than it is like a horror story. Hill House is more of a horror story. And this is... This is very... Midnight Mass is a horror story, but it's like epic horror. It's very Stephen King.
It's very Stephen King.
Everything Mike Flanagan makes is just screams he should just do every Stephen King adaptation.
Yes. This didn't scare me, but it's going to stick with me. And that's very Stephen King thing.
Yeah. It will. I think this will scare the shit out of some people, a couple of parts of it anyway. But
oh, yeah. I liked how he did the jumpy scares. The only similarity, I would say, to Bly Manor, specifically... is he does the thing again where someone's grief manifests in a ghost.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter, but it also matters. I think the strength of Mike Flanagan, the reason I really like Mike Flanagan, is because he, no matter what he writes, in terms of the series, I actually... in the movies, yes, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't feel the need to do it as much in the films. Everything comes from emotion and character, and it's what makes his stuff so effective.
Yeah,
he knows that horror deals with death, and death is an extremely dramatic thing to happen. And there's a lot of horror movies that honestly don't do that.
Well, we should,
like, weirdly enough, someone will get killed and they'll have like one scene of someone crying, and then the movie will hurt. You know, like it matters to him, death, and the fact that he deals with the afterlife so much, that ties to spirituality so much. And so that kind of, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say we should probably say up front how we felt about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm setting up the fact that I always like his stuff. This is one more thing that I've yet to be disappointed or like bummed out by. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I thought it was excellent. Yeah, and it's so far for me, Mike Flanagan. I didn't love Dr. Sleep, but I think he did a great job making something that was both an adaptation of that book and also a sequel to the movie. So it still succeeds in a lot of ways, but. I really enjoyed Midnight Mass.
I don't think I don't want to think of it this way, but if I were to compare all the Netflix shows, I would say I still like them in the order they came out. I like Haunting a Hill House the most. I like Bly Manor after that, and I like this. But that said, the difference is like a fraction with these.
Yeah.
They're all great.
And related to that point you were making up top, it's something that I kept thinking about in this series because, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but Flanagan does not throw any character's death away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It all matters.
Like, nobody's disposable. Even when, like, a secondary character dies, it's not... It doesn't happen easily, and he doesn't just throw it away. It's a very important event in the story when it happens.
Which is a big deal.
That's a huge deal for horror.
Yeah, it's also a huge deal in a series where almost everyone dies.
Yep.
Like we said, spoilers.
Yeah.
I want to talk up front about how funny it is that this priest found a screeching bat person and dressed him up in people clothes. Was like, it's an angel, and the bat's just like, yeah!
My favorite detail about that, I mean, we're going to get into it. My favorite detail about that is that it's unclear whether he's dressing the vampire or if the vampire's dressing himself.
Yeah. And I just love...
Yeah, and I love that at no point, especially during the final scene, or not the final scene, but the titular Midnight Mass, where he finally reveals what his plan has been to the whole town and has this fucking demon vampire walk in wearing priest's vestments. And it's like, it's the angel, and he's talking about all that. I just found it very funny. If it just at least one person in the church just been like, hey, hold on. That looks like a vampire.
Yeah, my version of this sketch is I wanted it at the end when he's at the bridge with the body and they're waiting for him to just like snap his finger and be like, "Fuck, vampire!" I think that was a vampire.
Oh, motherfucker, that was a vampire, wasn't it? Oh, damn it! It all makes sense now. Shit.
I think we can safely assume that this takes place. The biggest difference between this universe and ours is that I don't think they actually have vampires, because nobody says that is a vampire, sir, because it is clearly a vampire.
It is obviously a vampire. Yeah.
It's one of the things I had to like put out of my mind early. It was like, okay, so they haven't heard of vampires. Like, they just simply haven't, because otherwise someone would be like, yeah, that's clearly, that's just a vampire. If people, for whatever reason, haven't seen this, we should probably explain the plot a little, right?
Yeah, sure. Like a brief rundown. So it's a very small community. It's on an island called Crockett Island, which is, I assume, on the East Coast.
No, I think it's West Coast.
Is it West Coast?
They talk more about. Well, it looks more Pacific Northwesty. They also talk about like Seattle, I thought. Or like, maybe I'm making that up in my head.
Maybe there
was something that made me think it was Pacific Northwest, but it's unclear.
or maybe it might even be because I feel like maybe the only license plate I saw was Illinois, but that's in the beginning, and that's because that's where one of our main characters left the island to go to college, and he gets in a DUI accident and kills a teenage girl.
It does remind me of a lot of the islands coming off of Maine, where there's a ferry. I think it could be either coast.
Right. It's. I think it's deliberately not specific.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's this community, and it's their old priest, their ancient ass priest has left to go on a pilgrimage, basically to the Holy Land, because he's never been there, and he's dying. He's extremely old and he's failing. But this young priest comes back instead and is like, I'm gonna your priest is resting, but I'm gonna fill in for him while he's recovering from his journey. And then we slowly learned that this young priest is actually the old priest. He's become young again because while he was in Jerusalem, he's very badly suffering from dementia, and he just kind of wandered out into the desert and found this cave where he found a fucking vampire, like we've been talking about. And
he talks about it as an angel because I love this detail because it's true, is that he talks about whenever in the Bible, whenever someone sees an angel, it's terrifying. And they're like, well, this is terrifying.
Well, and there's a lot
and it has wings. Yeah. So, and I found it in the Holy Land. Yeah. This is a fucking angel.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of parallels you can draw between Christianity and specifically like the resurrection, like the story of Jesus' resurrection. There's a lot of parallels to draw between that and vampire legends, and that's kind of, you can kind of tell, or at least I feel like that's probably the case, is that's where this idea began.
Yeah, and it's not a new idea. Like, I would say
Salem's Lot,
vampire legend. Yeah, and Thirst. Yeah, the movie where the priest becomes a vampire. I feel like vampirism in general, or the lore with Dracula, probably came from Christianity.
And Dracula is an epistological novel. It's written in letters. It's written intentionally like the Bible.
Right. So it's not, for me, the thing that made this really good, because we texted to each other. We both figured this out by the second episode, because it's not. That's not the point. Here's the thing. Well, I would say, without spoiling Bly Manor and Hill House, both of those series do have like aha moments. Yeah. Again, they aren't twists. They're like, oh shit. They're like added things. This, I couldn't tell if this was trying to, but I was always looking for it. And so by the first episode, I was like, oh, it's he's the priest and it's a vampire.
Yeah, but they kind of explain all that in like the third episode.
Yes, because ultimately for me, I guess what I was getting at was that none of that, the religion vampire stuff, was the actual selling point. Was the thing that made me go, oh fuck, this is great.
The vampire's barely in it. Like it's not about that. Like, and I think that's why, like, I agree with you totally. Like, it's not. Yeah. It seems pretty clear that the vampire element, the reveal that there's a vampire, is not really meant to be like it doesn't really matter. Like, they do keep it a little bit secret, but like it's not a mystery box. Like, it doesn't matter if you figure it out early, because that's not the point of the story.
I guess I'm also saying it also isn't the vampirism and Christianity parallel. I don't think that's even the most important thing. I mean, that's cool.
No, it's just kind of the themes that it's built around, the idea of community, the idea of building a community around eating somebody, sharing his body and blood, and then you build it builds a covenant among people, and vampire communities are called covens, and like it's because of that. Well, there's a lot of parallel ideas that it just
I think it's more, for me, it's identifying why, which is, for me, this series came down with the fact that we are a species, possibly the only species on this planet, who are aware that they're going to die. Probably monkeys, too. And what that does to us. Mm-hmm. How much that fucks us up. Yeah. Because this is about fear and acceptance of death, which I feel like is a lot of Mike Flanagan. He he always has a different lore for the afterlife. This doesn't have a lore for the afterlife. It's not like what happens when you die. Well, it's a little bit. It's more of like what happens in the moments before you die, but that's the whole idea, which is that like vampirism and religion, weirdly enough, when we talk about that stuff in our heads, it's always about cheating death or about accepting death. And that's what a lot of this is that we've learned that this old priest is like, he just doesn't want to die. Like, well,
he brings...
That's part of it, at least, or a big part.
Yeah, we were in the middle of briefly trying to explain the plot.
Oh, yeah.
So he brings the vampire back with him to the community, and he starts putting the vampire's blood in the communion wine, because he's the island community. It's dying. Like, everybody lives in shacks. The fishing has dried up because they've been hit by strict regulations, and we also learned that there was a bad oil spill.
Everybody is wearing old age makeup, and I was like, why is that? And then a couple episodes in, I'm like, oh, I see.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he brings the vampire back because he thinks he's gonna resurrect his community, like revive his community, and all the people he loves and cares about. And then of course it gets fucked, like
like it would,
as these ideas do, because he brought a fucking vampire into the town.
Right, the thing eats all the cats.
It sure does. It's just a fucking monster. It's so funny that's what he's like, behold the angel, and it's wearing these people clothes, and it's like putting a shark in people clothes.
Yes. To put this in context, don't imagine Dracula. Like it's not. No,
it's
like,
Nosferatu. It's like winged Nosferatu is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's just an animal.
It's a fucking nightmare, is what it is.
Yeah. It seems to have intelligence, but it's like, but it doesn't talk, and it he dresses it like people. Yeah, it probably dressed itself when it showed up in that trench coat. That was very funny.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I mean, I thought it was striking every time it shows up. It's like, oh shit, like there it is.
Yeah, I mean, when I say I found it funny, that's not taking away from the show in any way. Because again, it's kind of like in Stephen King, where there's things Stephen King will do that I'll find funny. And it's still like awesome. And again, ultimately it was like, fuck the message. Also, this was one of the things that tipped me off. So we follow main character, and he killed a woman in a drunk driving accident, and he went to jail, and he's coming home.
He's kind of like a main character. There's a couple of leads, but it's pretty much him and Kate Siegel, Aaron.
They start with him, and they focus on him a lot, so you figure, oh, he'll last the whole thing. Spoilers, he doesn't.
He does not.
That was part of what how I realized the vampirism, because he keeps having this dream that he's on a boat seeing the sunrise, and then the dream stops, and it was like, oh, you're going to die because of the sunrise. And sure enough, that's what happens, because he gets turned into a vampire, and he basically makes the moral choice no one else does at that point. To be like, I need to warn people, and then I need to bounce.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, slowly but surely, he's putting he turns into a vampire, and you're not sure what you're seeing at first, but he passes out and dies, and then he comes back.
The priest.
So the idea is the priest. Yes. So the idea is that, like, you do have to die. So you can drink the blood, or you can be, like, basically the idea is all these people in the town who've been drinking the blood, when they die, they'll be vampires, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so our main character is like the first one besides the priest to turn.
Because he walks in on the priest talking to the vampire, and it's like, and then the vampire just eats him. Yeah,
super eats him.
Yeah.
So he gets resurrected, and they act like the angel has chosen him. That's a great whole fucking scene.
Yeah, that whole episode, and all the religious parallels are very, very well done, and it's not done in a way. It's not done in a way that's like talking down on religion, which I'm not religious, but that kind of starts to bug me after a while, because it's like, yeah, like we get it. But
well, what they do is they have the religious fanatic lady.
Yes.
And then they have religious people who are like, fuck that lady. And so they do the full spread. And then they have a beautiful idea with the sheriff, who's Muslim.
Yeah.
And he explains his religion extremely well. I think people have been talking about the on the social media
on the socias.
Yeah, and he's a hunk too. Everybody loves him.
Yeah, he's the
cook.
Coley. Yeah, from
the cook in Bly Manor.
Yeah.
And so this woman is like clearly very racist against him.
Yeah.
We go into his background, but it comes that ultimately it's coming down good on religion. And it's coming down bad on dogma.
Yes. Yeah.
And that again isn't like a new thing, but the way they do it is they didn't even make me scared that that's how things were going to go. That they were going to really like be preachy about religion.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately they do create this situation where I get it because it culminates to a scene where he basically he starts having the mass at night because he can't go out in the day.
He's a goddamn ghoul.
Yeah, because the that's the only thing we know is that the sun hurts them. We don't know a stake in the heart or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
And then at the final one, he brings out the vampire and he's like, "This is an angel." And he also has one of his, he gets a tight circle of people who are aware beforehand. The mayor, the tech guy, the handyman.
The local handyman, yeah.
Yeah, so they use this to shut down the island at the very end. And the handyman, I believe, is the one who takes his life.
He's the first one, yeah. They do they do Jonestown in the church. They have everybody drink rat poison.
Yeah, and they watch him die, and then he comes back to life. And there's an angel, so the whole town is kind of like, well, shit.
Right, yeah.
If I were in that audience, I'd be like, okay, I need a pamphlet or something first, but I'll listen.
Do you guys have some literature I can read? Apart from the Bible? Specifically one that explains what the fuck that thing is?
Yeah, he's also...
Because that's definitely not an angel, but I'm listening.
Yeah, they do a good job at creating a situation where it's less about religion, more about community.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are seeing miracles happen. They're seeing he heals this little girl who was paralyzed in a hunting accident. So very early on, people are seeing that amazing things are happening around this priest. And so it becomes this thing where a scattering of them start taking the poison. But not everybody. Some people even that's what I liked, is that they do the idea of the flock are not mindless. Some of them are wait, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
But it creates a situation where the priest gets incapacitated, shot in the face.
He sure does.
Yeah, but he's a vampire. And so the religious fanatic, who is basically the only person framed as a villain, this woman, they set her up as she poisoned a man's dog.
Yeah, but she's not... I appreciate that she's not an unbelievable villain.
Well, that's the beauty, is in the end, she gets a little bit of sympathy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right?
A little bit. Not much. She's... not much. She is almost purely villainous. Yeah,
but we see her fear. We see that, like everybody else, she just doesn't. The main character's, or one of the main characters' mom confronts her, and she's like, "You're not a good person."
It's Riley's mom. Yeah,
you think you're seen better in the eyes of God than others, but we're all equal, and that's the idea. She feels like she's a little closer to God than everybody else.
Right, and it's not even that. It's when the mom confronts her. Bev is the villain's name. Yeah. When the mom confronts Bev, she doesn't even phrase it like that. She phrases it like, why she it's like a question. She's like, why does it upset you so much that God loves everyone just as much as he loves you? Why does it upset you that he doesn't love you more than everybody else?
Right. And again, I think it all comes down to then later, before this character dies, at the last minute, she tries to bury herself in the sand.
Starts frantically
so the sun
digging a hole. Yeah, it was because she looks over at the sheriff who's praying with his son, doing his Muslim prayer, and then he falls over and dies because she has shot him.
Yeah.
he had said when he was talking to his son earlier, because his son starts getting interested in going to the church because the whole community is buzzing about it, and he wants to belong. He doesn't have the same hang-ups. We learned that his dad joined the force after 9/11 and then became very disillusioned when it became clear that they were just using him to spy on Americans. There's a whole thing there, but so his son ends up joining the church, but he's having a conversation with his son about religion and looking for God, and he's basically trying to convince his son that whatever miracles the church is offering aren't miracles. That's because he's like, that's not how God works. And then he explains how his wife, his son's mother, died from pancreatic cancer, I believe.
Yeah.
Basically as a way to illustrate, I can't believe in miracles because why would he allow this to happen and then pick somebody else? That just isn't the way it works. It's not magic. It's, it's faith. But he has a line where he talks about how, oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up two scenes, but he's telling the same story essentially later on to a different character, but he talks about the idea of how the cancer robbed his wife of her dignity at the end. And
right.
And he talks about trying to preserve dignity for his family and his son when he moved to this small town to take the sheriff's posting. And so in that scene where it's him and Bev they're both on the beach waiting for the sunrise and he's praying with his son, he's meeting his death with dignity. And then she is clawing at the dirt and sobbing. It's very undignified.
Yeah, it's the other aspect of why people would would fear death.
Yeah.
Which is that she also knows she did bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the eyes of God, she, by her rules, she ain't going up there.
Probably not.
Yeah, so it's this last-minute realization of just pure fear, because at this point, she's not only done bad things, but she's led people to do bad things, because the aspect we haven't talked about is the fact that once you turn, they really push the thirst aspect, which ties into the fact that one of the characters is going through AA. They tie a little bit of addiction into this. Where once you're a vampire, you can't help yourself. So there's parts later when once they all drink the poison, or some of them do, they wake up, and then there's other people in the church. The evil lady has ordered the doors locked, so they just feast on everybody else. And then those people turn whether they wanted to or not.
Yeah.
And then those people are starving. So there's parts later where someone's crying and they're like, I think I ate my wife. Stuff like that, where if they didn't drink, this lady's created a system that she thinks is very smart, which is that if you weren't going to communion, you weren't drinking the blood. So once you're eaten, you're not getting back up if you haven't gone to church. So it's like this judgment, this revelation, and that's where her and the priest ultimately diverge. When basically the priest gets shot in the face, all this shit goes down in the last episode. She burns down the whole town, except for one building, because she knows that once the sun shows up, it's going to kill anybody in the sun, so she gets rid of all the shelter, and she is like, only the chosen people will be in this building, and the priest is like, no, everybody should be welcome in that building, and that's how they that's how they're able to make that difference, where the priest, who you would assume, I think the biggest twist is that the priest isn't really the villain.
He is and he isn't. He tried to do a good thing, what he thought was a good thing.
Yeah, he's the villain or the antagonist, but he means well.
He's not evil.
He's not evil. And when he realizes that her version of it is not the same as his, that's when he's just like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah, and that also causes him to realize that the whole thing was fucked. He realizes at the end that he was super wrong to bring this thing to this town.
Because there's another detail, is that there's an old lady in town who's the mother of the town doctor. The town doctor who is, and this was one of the things that gives off the twist, she's gay, and she's in a relationship, or she's dating another woman, and the priest is staring at her at the picnic, and she's like, he's staring at me just like the old priest used to. And I was like, yeah, that's because he's the old priest. And she's like, I always felt like he knew. Like, he knew that she was gay.
Mm-hmm.
The reveal is that she's absolutely his love child.
Yeah, she's his daughter. Yeah.
Which is that was the only thing I didn't see coming, because they hit it on another thing. And that's why he's staring at her, because it's his daughter. And so you find out that his mother, who is de-aging because he's personally giving her communion in bed, you find out that they were lovers, and he was mostly doing it for her. And she de-ages all the way to his age.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's you basically realize, like, he's just an old man, who has a lot of regrets in his life.
Yeah.
And that was a great conversation where he's talking to the mother, who was elderly, and she's like, we were supposed to fade away. We had our shot.
Yeah, that's the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't what we wanted, maybe, but that was it. And so it's that aspect of it. He's trying to cheat death. He was old. He didn't want to die yet. He regretted his life. So, like, they do a really good job at showing all the aspects of why someone fears or doesn't want to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's not all the same thing. And everybody has their own motives. And that's really cool, I thought.
Yeah. No, it does. I mean, all of his shows so far, Flanagan's shows so far, have been these big ensemble pieces with a pretty big cast of well fleshed out characters, and this is the same. And so there's probably a main cast of, I don't know, 10 characters, and they all are pretty well realized, and they all represent, like you were saying, different aspects of death and what they think about death, and why they don't want to die, or it's
right.
It's it's good. It's a real good show. I
Oh no, I was just gonna say where it all culminates to,
Mm-hmm.
which is the point.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say?
I was also going to talk a little bit about the ending, in relation to its biblical themes. All of the villains are undone specifically by vanity. Like the priest, his whole plan is vanity, right? Because he wants to cheat death for a personal reason, but also he thinks he can help his community, and he basically takes it upon himself to interpret what he believes is the will of God, and he's I'm gonna usher in this miracle because that's what I think this vampire is. So he tries with his own will to subvert the natural law, which is that's vanity. The Bev, the evil lady, burns down half of the island because she's like, well, fuck them. The fire won't spread to our half of the island, and this way we can smoke them all out. But what she doesn't factor in is that the people they haven't rounded up yet are burning their side of the islands.
Right.
So at the end, when they finally burn down the shelter, the church that they were planning on moving into, and she's like, well, we got to go somewhere else. And like the handyman's like, you burned it all, Bev. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, and they burn the boat so they can't get off.
Mm-hmm.
That said,
Well, I had one more thing.
Okay.
And that's the vampire itself. Do you remember how she beats, how the vampire itself gets beat? Is we see a couple of times that the vampire is so bestial and so like deathless, like it is so ancient, that it does not consider anything a threat. Like these kids stumble upon it in this house that it's squatting in on the island, and it doesn't give a fuck about them. It's just sitting there eating something. And
I was
the
gonna
point where
say
they're like literally shooting it, and it's just like swatting his hand at them. He's like, go away.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's that the hunger is so great that it can't focus on anything else. It actually quite reminds me of my cat when she does this thing where she sticks her face in my armpit and like drools and does the little bacon biscuits thing, and like she cannot be bothered by anything when she's doing that. It's almost in a trance.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like so focused. And I know what you're getting at, which is that's what is used. Basically, the demon is feasting on somebody, and she cuts his wings.
Like,
so it
busily and steadily cuts its wings apart so that it can't make it back to the mainland before sun rises.
And they try to make it open-ended as to whether or not it dies, but it totally dies.
Right. No, the last line of the show is, I can't feel my legs.
I can't feel my legs.
Which means that vampire's dead.
Yeah, which is said by the girl, which is actually really important because those two kids would totally become vampires when they die if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Only 2 kids basically survive.
Yes.
The girl who gets healed, who's paralyzed, and like the little brother of the guy, the drunk driving guy.
Yeah, one of the main characters, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was just connecting that to like the vampire didn't conceive that these people would be able to hurt him, and that's what eventually, that's what kills it. Yep,
you're right. It's all vanity. There's also... I mean, this is another, like, kind of like having to just be like, okay, they haven't heard of vampires. I found it hard to believe there wasn't any shelter left, but it's like, all right, fine. Like, fine, whatever. You know, like, they're saying there isn't any shelter. That's the point.
Well, you can't make a basement in an island like that.
No, it just feels like, find some fucking bushes.
Yeah,
or like
find a bridge to crouch under, some shit. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. But that's when it all culminates. Is so basically everything gets burnt down, and she's turned the entire island into vampires, and then the sun's going to come up.
Yep.
And so it's all these people who've been fearing death, or not fearing death, who've just had their various views of death, having to at once face their own mini revelations. And everybody on the island has to sit there for 10 minutes and just decide what to do with the fact that they know it's the end. Some of them sing the Titanic theme.
Yep. Nearer, my God, to thee.
Yeah, there it is.
That's the one that the band played on the Titanic as it was sinking.
There's no other song associated with Titanic.
I know, but if they had started belting out My Heart Will Go On, holy fuck.
That would have been so amazing.
Yeah.
And so they also find that, like, for example, the main character's mom and dad, who is, I didn't recognize her, but he is, the dad and
E.T.
Yeah, no, I said her. I didn't recognize.
Right. Yeah, I didn't recognize her either.
Yeah, they don't feast. Like, they get the hunger, but they have this moment where he's like, and I think they're not the only ones where they're like, I don't think you have to. I think these people have a choice. They're like, I'm really hungry, but I'm not going to do it.
Right, and we've seen that the priest has hung in there for a long time without killing anybody, eating them.
Yeah, I mean, he ate somebody. He didn't kill him.
Yeah, eventually.
But he suckled his brain blood.
At that point, he'd been hanging on for like weeks.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like clearly like you can control it if you want to.
Right, and that was a lot of what like the movie Thirst is about, which is like that. At what point when you become a vampire do you become a servant of hell? Is it the vampirism or is it what it causes you to do? You know, what is the morality there? Because if you haven't chosen to be a vampire, it's not your fault. So they deal with that a lot, where like people feeling immense guilt and then knowing it's the end, and then how people deal with that. The dignity, dying with dignity. And it's just like, there's 2 episodes that are banging. The one where the guy becomes a vampire and he's just sitting and talking to the priest, and the priest is logicking his way into convincing
He's really rationalizing it, yeah.
Yeah. And that was just a brilliantly written scene in that episode, where he's talking about the idea of how when he finally ate someone, he didn't feel guilty, and God took that guilt from him. Which I assume that's alluding to the vampirism, right? Is that it's just making them they're like animals, right? They just don't feel that.
Yeah, I assume the more you eat, the closer you'll become to that bat creature thing.
Yeah,
where you just lose all humanity and you're just an animal.
Right. And then the last episode, which is just the Revelations, literally named Revelations, where they're just dealing with that.
It's called Revelation, the episode, because the book of the Bible is singular.
Yeah, they wrote it wrong, Tom.
The Bible? Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously.
Yeah,
clearly that was written wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, not just that title, I guess, but yeah, mainly that title.
The entirety. Yeah, it's. I would agree. I really like the one, the third episode where it's the priest in confessional and he's reciting. He's basically telling us the story of what happened to him in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And that episode is pretty dope.
Yeah, I like that one
with the woodcuts, the different woodcut pictures.
Oh, that was well done.
Yeah.
But as people can tell, the thing we're not talking about really are the scares, because it really doesn't go for scares. It actually felt like the scares were obligatory. Like Flanagan was like, I better put some scares in this. So we have the guy the drunk driver, he kills a woman. You probably see in the trailer, every night he goes to bed, he just sees her staring at him. And that's a great looking, it's not a ghost, it's a memory.
Yeah, it's just the idea of this is what he takes to bed with him every night.
Yeah, it's the last thing he saw of her, this young woman he didn't know. And then there's a couple of vampire scares when it's like sneaking in the windows and stuff. That's about it.
Yeah, there's not much. There really isn't much.
And I'm not just talking about jump scares. I'm more talking about like the visual aspect of horror.
Mm-hmm. There's tension, but not a lot of there's not a lot of like real horror moments.
Yeah, it's more the bat creature is it's for me it's more conceptual. It's more like what a mind fuck.
Yeah. It's more about the themes, and like I said, there's tension, but there's not a whole lot of moments that are use the visual language of horror, I guess, is the way to say it. There's a couple, like when when the vampire lures that kid into the house. That's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
it's a good scene. But that's like really kind of the only horror scene. It's one of like a very small handful. Here's
all right. What I imagine, and I've seen this like talked about on the internet in a good way, but I could see this being something that would annoy people if this isn't their cup of tea. It's a lot of Mike Flanagan writing small manifestos and then giving them to characters to say. You know what I mean? It's a lot of monologues. It's a lot of people being like, here's what I think death is. And then they go on this big... And I liked it because everything they said was very interesting and well done.
Yes, and that it was relevant. Like it would have irritated me more if the story was forced to be able to include those monologues, and they're not. They felt very natural.
Yeah, no one's talking about what they call a Whopper in France.
Yeah,
it's all very, and it doesn't feel like Mike Flanagan's ego getting in the way or anything. It's just the way he writes. The other shows had that too. This is probably the most heavy it's been of like, we're going to have a monologue and it's going to be meaty and it's going to be great. And you're right. It's always relevant and it's the kind of the point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it works, I thought, pretty darn well.
It also works particularly well because most of them are delivered by the priest.
Yeah, and that's what priests are there for.
Yeah, and specifically the actor, Hamish Linklater plays him, is fucking captivating. Like, I don't know if you had the same response to him, but every time he was on screen, I was like leaning forward. He's fucking great in this.
He does, oh God, he's so good. Because he's playing it like a priest, if that makes sense. And he's playing it like a cool priest, but not like a priest trying to be cool. He's playing it like a priest that is actually cool.
Yeah.
Like I liked him.
Yes.
That was what was good about that character is he was charismatic. When he was doing the AA meetings, he's really natural.
His whole performance is that's the main thing that I flagged about it. It's very natural. Like it's so
it's layered. Yeah. It's like he felt like it's like it's two things on top, because to be a priest, you're essentially a performer when you're a priest.
Kind of.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of parallels. You're a public speaker. You have to say stuff.
Yeah.
you're genuine. You're supposed to be inspirational. So you can see him turning on in that sense, but that's the character turning on. So there was layers of how the character spoke in any given situation. He was very soft-spoken in some. He was very natural in others. It was like, yeah, he's trying to put on this attitude.
He's being the orator right now.
Yeah, or he's being very patient with people. They do a thing, basically what they're spelling out is that he is a good priest, or rather he was a good priest in his life. Like he's a
good person. Like he was a good man.
But I just mean in the sense that like a priest is also can be a therapist and can be an advisor. And he's very good at what he does. And then on top of that, there's all this other stuff he has to deal with, and then him getting wrapped into this lie. They make him feel, it feels like he is a victim of the vampire, ultimately.
Yeah.
It's fucking great. Everybody's good in this, but he is stealing the show.
He's like the real standout. Yeah. Also, the woman who plays Bev is very good. The villain.
You know, did you recognize her from Hill House?
Steven's wife in Hill House.
Yeah. In both, she has the ability to be sinister because she gets a sinister scene. So she was great. She's a bit of a caricature. She's a bit of a woman in the mist. People.
I didn't get. It could have gone real far, like real over the top, and I don't. Well, she doesn't quite hit that ever.
As we're learning more and more in politics, people are caricatures.
Yes.
And so she is. They do a great scene that's supposed to make your blood boil, where there's a PTA meeting where she has been handing out Bibles, and she argues why she should continue, and half of the PTA applauds her, and it's like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, they do a good job where it's like, they don't just have like they have people who believe in the Bible, in the dogma, who aren't bad. Who understand that it's still ultimately about compassion and stuff like that. So they don't do the thing where it's like spirituality is good, but the Bible's bad. And again, I'm not a religious person at all, but I was flagging that early because it was like, what are you going to do with this? And it's almost like Mike Flanagan knows like that's too much of a cliche.
Yeah,
now.
It would be. I think it would ruin what he was trying to say to go in that direction.
Yeah, but it is still, she is the bad apple that spoils the bunch. She's the
bad guy.
She's the lady in the mist. Like, she is the fanatic who then drives a group of people to follow her into the abyss. But they just have more time with her, too. She has a lot more time to be fleshed out, so they don't need to lean so hard on tropes and caricatures.
Because that's Marcia Gay Harden in The Mist. She's killing it too, but like
she has less time.
They have a lot more room to allow the character to be more nuanced and more realistic version of this person. Like a lot of people have met this person.
Yeah. That said, I do wish they they toned her down a little bit. I would have liked being surprised by her being, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, the moment you meet her, you know what she is. Like, the moment I saw her, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, oh, you're a real asshole, huh?
Yeah. And so I think it would have been fun to get her a little more, like, they had that room. There was, like, the fact that he heals that little girl at the beginning, it's a great idea because they basically make it so that everybody loves him. And they make the little girl's family in on it early. And, like, they're more sympathetic versions of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I would have...
She was meant to represent that a lot of things, but like she sees this as an opportunity for her to be even more powerful and be the center of attention. Because it's clear that she's always wanted to be a priest or the center of attention or just be the boss, have all the power, be in control. Like that's what appeals to her about religion, is getting to say that she's better than everybody else.
Right. And it's almost like, part of me is like, I would have liked to see that ambition done in a more, like, she's less of a snake, less of a clear evil, but that at the same time, it's important to have someone like that because there are people like that.
Yep.
That's an aspect of religion. And that's what, again, it's what this is all about in the comparison of religion to vampirism, is it's a dogmatic system where there's, it's passed on, there's ritual, and people ultimately are attracted to it because of that fear of the unknown that we are all given at birth, that fear of death. And it's about all the different ways people take advantage of that or people don't take advantage of that. So it's important to have her as a character.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a tricky character to have. And I think Mike Flanagan knew that.
Yes. And I think this pulls it off almost as well as it could have been done. Like I certainly probably couldn't have done it any better.
No, yeah, same here. She's done really well.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the solution is, or even if she is a problem.
Yeah, I don't think she really is a problem. Like I was paying very close. Just to echo what you were saying, I was also paying very close attention to this character for the same reason. Where I was like, oh, this kind of character could go very wrong.
Yeah, I think it's more of
she
like.
Doesn't, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's the cultural. It's the stuff around that character. It's the fact that we know that character already.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that it's not her in this thing. Again, everybody does a great job. She's well written. They show her vulnerable at the end. You actually pity her by the end, or at least I did.
A little bit, yeah.
Pity her. She's still horrible,
right?
But
it's still, and I like
you pity the darkness inside of her that she's clearly has. And you know where she's coming from. It's more as just that since she is a cultural cliche, she sticks out a little.
I also appreciate that kind of her comeuppance isn't what you might necessarily expect. Because, like, for instance, in Silent Hill, which is a film that is nowhere near the quality of this.
Yeah.
But Alice Kierg in that plays the same character, but like the over-the-top camp version.
Yes, and then her death is the over-top camp version.
Yeah, and she is massacred through the vagina by a barbed wire. So you're expecting the comeuppance of this character to be extreme. I hope you're not expecting it to be, as misogynistic and sexually violent as Silent Hill was. But like you're expecting it to be extreme, and I really appreciate that her comeuppance comes in the form of seeing her abandon all pretense and all dignity and just claw desperately at the ground, trying to dig a hole to hide in from the sun. Like that's her comeuppance.
It was good. Even that was on the line for me, and it was still good. But like,
I thought it was very satisfying.
That's what I mean. Is that we want satisfaction?
Yeah. He's
and
still
I
making
think that's
a movie.
actually,
it's still a story.
Yeah, exactly. That's a bad instinct, I think, in humans.
Yeah.
And so it's that thing of like, if they had blown her up or like done something where someone calls her a name and shoots her and kicks her into a wood chipper, it'd been like, that's appealing to the wrong thing.
Right.
The fact that she dies as an equal to everybody else, and everybody does show her compassion, they just say, fuck you. And everybody
they just abandon her. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody is just wandering around.
Well, it's not even that they abandon her. It's that they're like, well,
no, they just all go.
They all go to do their own things. Or I want to go be with my loved ones. I want to find some solace in my last moments on Earth, and she's just got nothing.
Yep.
Because she spent her whole life looking down on everybody and, separating herself as being above everybody else. And then at the end, she ends up right next to the sheriff she hated so much. And he gets to die with dignity with his family, with his son, and she's sitting there fucking digging a hole for herself like a rodent.
Right.
It's awesome.
it shows the true meaning of karma, where like they even have the guys who are lonely who are just like, you want to go die together, and it's like, sure, man.
Yeah.
And in the sense that karma, we love the idea that someone who done bad to us gets something horrible happen to him. But the reality
part of the idea
is that
of religion too. Sorry, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's why we love religion. it's one of the few times that I wish there was a hell is when I look at a politician like Mitch McConnell, and I'm
right,
like,
you're like,
man, I wish there was a hell.
I know you're never going to go to jail or see any kind of justice here, so boy, I hope there's a hell.
Right, and that's where...
And I will see you there, Mitch McConnell.
Exactly. I will see you in hell, but I'll have a better seat than you, I bet. Yeah. But what karma comes down to is the idea of if someone is mean, if someone does bad in their life, it ultimately creates a life for them that is bad. Yeah. They're miserable.
Yeah.
Someone like Mitch McConnell probably has a lot of sadness and anger in him, a lot of gripping to power, a lot of negativity that makes his life already a living hell. And so that's what I think he's tapping into here, is that her karma is she has to live with herself. She has to die with herself. That's the world she created for herself, where there's nobody, around her who cares about her. No one wants to deal with her, and she's afraid. And it's great. It's more like when I said it was on the line, it was like I almost didn't need the digging. It was like just showing her pure fear, but I get why he did that. It's funny.
I think
it was a fun detail. It was like,
I think
he's just trying to dig.
Yeah, the dignity also ties it. I mean, the digging also ties it back to the idea of dignity, and
yes.
And,
you made it way more awesome when you pointed out the dignity thing. I didn't even catch that.
Oh, yeah.
And so the dignity, that ties it all together in a nice bow.
Yeah.
Where it's he died with dignity, and she's right there doing the opposite. That's perfect.
Even as the audience is feeling sad and mourning this character that they like, and feeling upset that of all the people, like, she had to be the one that kills the sheriff. That sucks. But then, like, you see what happens to her, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And everybody dies.
In
this and in real life. But, like, especially in this.
And that's the idea. Like, that's one of the things that, like, the whole thing takes place at Easter. It's like we mentioned up top, it's entwining vampire mythology with the resurrection story from the Bible. So at, like, Good Friday, they have the mass where they're doing the ashes on everybody's forehead, and he's telling everybody that thing that you get told when you go to church on Ash, right?
Which involves we will become ash.
It's like from ash we came, and to ash we will all return, or something like that. And like Riley throws it in the priest's face again later, and that's kind of how it had to end, was to be like, we're all gonna die. There's no cheating this.
That's the shit that was like, oh, Mike Flanagan, you smart little motherfucker.
Yeah, he's great.
Like, they literally turn into ash.
And he plants the seed with that fucking rat poison, where you're like, well, I wonder. I guess that rat poison story was just to show us that Bev was cruel. Oh, no, it definitely ties into the ending.
Yeah, he knows how to tell a story. So some of this stuff, it's like, it's not revolutionary. But, like, the Ash stuff, it was... And, again, it's like, I've seen vampirism tied to religion. It is created from that. I've never seen such a beautiful essay on that link.
Correct, yeah.
It's perfect. It's just got all the things.
It's very, very well done. Did you spot Mike Flanagan in the Jerusalem scene?
No.
He's the priest that helps the old priest up when he stumbles in the Jerusalem flashback. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, it's Mike Flanagan.
Good for him.
Yep.
And of course, his wife is in this.
Yeah, Kate Siegel plays Erin.
Kate Siegel, she's
in like all of this
she's always
stuff.
great.
Yeah.
She's always great.
It's never like a case of he's put his she's only in this because she's married to him.
She's an actress.
She's really good. Yeah. If you've not seen Hush, she's fucking incredible in it.
Yeah. No. I would put her in everything too. Like it's just like, what a great resource you have. She can't say no.
Yeah.
She's gonna have to be in your stuff. That's
it's like he puts Henry Thomas in everything too. He's not married to Henry Thomas. He just finds actors that he likes and that are good, and then he puts them in his things.
Yeah, and I like seeing them in all this.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody, like the doctors, Annabeth Gish.
Here's what I love about this shit. It's why I like any anthology series that keeps using the same cast. Is you get to see them like really flex.
You get to be different kinds of characters. Yeah,
she was the Dudley. Right, the doctor. She was one of the Dudleys.
Mrs. Dudley.
The other,
Hill House,
and Mr. Dudley is in this as well.
Yeah, he is.
And he's great in this too.
He's got a heartbreaking story, but yeah, he's very good.
Yes. Well, but does he? Because ultimately, he dies cure?
Yeah, and he was forgiven. Like the little girl forgave him for paralyzing her.
Yeah, he actually finds redemption, and then he dies, and it's like, oh, that's a shame. And then a few episodes later, you're like, yeah, it's probably for the best.
Yeah,
honestly.
he made it out pretty well considering.
Yeah, he died. He died better. He got his blood juices sucked. But I mean, you know, these things happen.
I appreciated that one of the characters has an X-Files poster hanging up in their room because, you know, of course, Annabeth Gish was on the X-Files.
His fucking room was basically my room. He had a Seven poster and I think just a Scully poster.
Yeah, it's an X-Files Scully poster, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, okay. Because the idea is he went to jail, and he's been in jail for a while, and he's been away from home, so they kept his room the same. So it's just like he was a 90s kid. And yeah, X-Files 7, and there was one other thing.
There's a bunch of... He's got a bunch of Stephen King and Christopher Pike books on his bookshelf, which is, obviously, because Flanagan has made Stephen King stories, and then I think also one of the books was literally Salem's Lot. And then he's making the Christopher Pike anthology series that comes out, I think, next year on Netflix.
But I think he had one other poster, but it doesn't matter. It was very... That was fun. 7 also ties to the themes of it. The X-Files kind of does, but because honestly, on the supernatural scale, it's more like the X-Files. It's the kind of supernatural where it's like we've already talked about, the afterlife is intangible still, but there are monsters. There are, fucking vampires.
Yep, walking around in people clothes.
Yeah.
Well, they did put shoes on, though. He was still barefoot when he was wearing the people clothes.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not putting things on my fucking feet.
He had a hat at one point, didn't he?
He did.
He looked like Raphael on the street.
Yeah. He looked like Raphael going to
turtle.
see critters.
Yeah, he had that trench coat. It was very funny. And then again, when I love this from the vampire point of view, where the vampire is just like, just be quiet. This guy's doing all the work for me.
Yeah.
He's like when they're at the church and the vampire's sitting there in the robe, the vampire's thinking like, man, I got away with this shit.
Yeah,
I can't believe I got away with this shit.
This was so fucking easy. I just got to stand up here and make big arms. I can make big arms. I can make big arms all night long.
I'm gonna turn all these assholes into vampires.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking sweet. I'm gonna eat like half of these people. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's like a fucking. It's like a romantic comedy where he's just assuming an identity, where it's just like at the very start he's like an angel and the vampire's like, don't correct him, just roll with it.
See how long I can ride this.
Yeah, this is the while you were sleeping of vampire stories.
Yeah,
where he's like, okay, he's gonna bring me home. He's gonna bring me home to meet the rest. This is great.
I like that in the first episode as well. I think this is we're running. We're probably getting close to the end, but I did want to talk about this. There's a way that Mike Flanagan teases you a little bit, especially if you're familiar with vampire stories. Like, he puts a lot of stuff in that first episode. Like, there's two different characters, Riley and the priest, where he shows two different scenes where they are coming to somebody's house and they stop right at the threshold and just wait there. But they don't say, can I come in or anything in those scenes. They just kind of wait there. And then it cuts to them already inside. So if you're like watching as a horror fan, you immediately flag that kind of shit where you're like, oh, fuck, I think they might be vampires. And then there's another scene in that first episode where it shows the priest coming over to the island on the ferry. And in his room, he drags in this chest, this big steamer trunk. And then you hear a knock on it from the inside, and he knocks back, and that's a reference to let the right one in.
Yeah, this is going back to why in the first episode I was like, vampire, because I realized it for the wrong reasons. When Riley has to be invited in, I was like, is he a vampire? And then the priest showed up, and then when I realized he was the old priest, I was like, oh, he's the vampire.
Yeah.
And again, they're not trying yet, because if you're a horror fan, the knocking thing is like screaming vampire.
Yeah.
if you've seen Let the Right One In, you're like, oh, I know exactly.
Yeah, he's got a vampire in that box.
Yeah, the priest saw Let the Right One In and was like, oh, I got a cool thing I can do with this vampire.
Well, and then I think toward the end of that episode, you see him sitting there reading, and the trunk is open, and you can see there's dirt in the bottom of it. So if you're a horror fan, you're like, oh, that's a fucking vampire.
Yeah. I could have used a What We Do in the Shadows reference somewhere in here, but whatever. Yeah, this is great. This is a great addition to vampire cinema.
It's very good.
It's very good. Again, it's for me. It's kind of what we talked about with her. Not Hereditary. What's the other one we just did? Fuck, Malignant. A movie I didn't really like, but that's another thing where it's like it's not the twist, it's the execution.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same thing in a completely different way.
Yeah.
But it's the same where it's like, you figure out what's happening, and then you're still shocked by the end because you're like, wow, you fucking nailed that. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I think this might be his best work, but it's not my favorite, if that makes sense.
I think it's his cleanest.
Yeah, I just like Ghost more.
That's fair.
I think Hill House was just beautiful.
Hill House is the shit.
Yeah, but I do think this might be even better constructed. The only as Bruce Willis would call it, shuffa, as in the extra stuff that it's like, I don't know if you needed that, is the dead girl ghost. That felt almost obligatory, where it was like, I need something ghost-like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still great,
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, I have nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but we don't want this to be a 3-hour podcast, so yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we went all over the place, but I hope that people didn't listen to this having not seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking good.
It's good as shit. Great way to kick off whole spoopy season.
Yeah. Very good spoopy starts.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
We I don't know, we have a Patreon. If people are interested, they can go to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. For $5 a month, you get exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama. Those are all exclusive for an extra $10, as in just $10 whole dollars, not $10 on top. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons.
We sure do.
We've been watching them Final Destinations lately. But I don't know what we're watching this next Friday. We'll see. Probably something spoopy.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be the spoopiest. We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs for t-shirts, stickers, mugs, posters, all kinds of stuff. So check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out, you beautiful jamokes.
Yeah. And you're probably not going to find a screeching bat person.
Probably not.
You could let a regular bat bite you and drink its blood, and maybe that'll turn you into a vampire. So maybe do that.
I mean, yeah, that's just good advice.
Yeah,
that's just good advice to tuck away in under your hat.
No downsides.
Under your little wide brim hat that you let a vampire wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's. I'm sorry. One last thing before you leave. That first night when Riley spots the vampire wearing the trench coat and the hat outside, and he goes and chases it, and it's like running away from him, like bent over to the point where it's almost loping away from him. It's like I'd stop chasing whatever that was.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, if
I
you're
don't
in
want
a
to catch up to that fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe don't.
Yeah. Maybe turn around. Maybe let that thing go.
It's kind of Riley's problem, motherfucker. It's nosy.
Yeah,
nosy
bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Mind your own beeswax, Riley.
Let the vampire be.
Yeah, let him do his vampire business.
Yeah, he's not hurting anybody.